Hello there, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. How are you? And I did it.
She did it. She got me.
I did it. I got him. I tricked him. It's about time. It's been a while.
I thought I would have to lead the way, but no, she did it.
I tricked him.
And we are recording.
Here we are.
Yay.
Yay.
So, guys, before we get going, and there's a lot we want to get across in here, we do want to again thank everybody for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi, and do check out our buddies over at Medicinal Foods. It does support the channel when you use the coupon code EEA, and it gets you guys a discount. Things like living greens. The greens are so important. Spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass. These are things that we add to our shakes every single day that we make a shake, which should be every single day.
Should be.
Though sometimes, like days where we start off and when we start working, often I don't eat.
We just go nonstop. There's no real breaks because we're always doing the video, or we're working with people, or we're doing charts. We're always busy when it's a work day. So sometimes we don't get juices in on those days.
Yes. But fresh juice is so powerful, important, and a wonderful way to start your day.
Yes.
So, right now I wanted to go over here just to make people aware of the conditions that were in effect when the world had its last global conflagration. And let's throw our prayers and positive intentions out there that, that was the last one. Mm-hmm. Although, as we look, we're going to see that things are looking like we are creeping towards another conflict of perhaps a global nature. It will be the last conflict of the Kali Yuga. Mm-hmm. And in reality, what we've gotten from the guides is this is usually how Kali Yugas end. It ends basically with the people waking up to the point where they throw their guns down. You could take a biblical phrase and, turn your weapons into plowshares, as people all of a sudden just realize, why are we doing this? And it doesn't make sense. And, they start to throw their weapons away and get along. Mm-hmm. And thus the Kali Yuga will end. Rationing. Now, we're going to look at some facts and figures that might surprise you guys. And they surprised me, honestly. But this is what a typical weekly food ration was for an adult in World War II. And, basically rationing began on the 8th of January, 1940, when bacon, butter, and sugar were rationed. By 1942, many other things also were on the ration list. So bacon and ham, 4 ounces for a week. Other meat, the value of 1 shilling and 2 pence, which was equivalent to 2 chops. 2 ounces of butter, 2 ounces of cheese, 4 ounces of margarine. Leave the margarine where it is. You're better off with regular butter. Cooking fat, 4 ounces. Milk, 3 pints. Sugar, 8 ounces. Preserves, 1 pound every 2 months. Tea, 2 ounces. Eggs, 1 fresh egg, plus an allowance of dried egg. This is per adult per week. Sweets, 12 ounces every 4 weeks. That's like 3 ounces a week.
Yeah, that would be difficult for me.
Oh, so says the woman that ate my dessert.
Yeah, I'm horrible.
She is, guys. You have no idea. You have no idea. And it says here, yes, I know what you're thinking. This doesn't look like much, right? In fact, ordinary people survived on such rations. Now, those who produced their own food were able to have a bit extra. This is what we've been talking about. Get ready for your victory garden.
Yep.
Yeah, the V garden. Okay. China is stockpiling food at historically high levels. What do they know? They know a lot, obviously. As we know, there's multiple things going on here. We do have natural things.
Yes.
Grand solar minimum. We have a magnetic pole reversal underway. And again, by the way, the guides have said we don't have to worry about a magnetic pole reversal with crustal displacement for decades. And I know, there are those out there that, are saying that something is going to happen right around the corner. But what we've gotten is no, it's nothing to worry about right now. There's many other things right in front of our faces right now that are so obviously manifesting right in front of us that we don't have to be using our psychic abilities to see.
No, not at all.
When you look at the numbers, this was the kind of like aha moment.
Yeah, it really was.
China is stockpiling foods at historically high levels and now has more than half the world's maize. Corn, basically. More than half the world's corn and other grains. By mid-2022, right? Another 6 months. 5 months, 6 months. The country is estimated to hold 69% of the world's corn reserves, 60% of the rice, and 51% of the wheat. Is that not a wake-up call? Hello?
Yep. This is something that, I mean, you gotta just kind of look at this and something that makes you go, So everybody should have their own stuff set up for themselves.
Now, China has the largest population in the world, but it's less than 20% of the world's total population. China's got 1.4 billion people. India, 1.3 billion people. The world, 7.7-ish, 7.8 billion. And, that might actually be in decline right now. Certainly, certain countries are in decline, especially the Western developed nations. As we know, sperm rates down 60%, fertility rates overall way down, the amount of kids being born plummeting in most places. And when we look to this, again, let me give you those numbers. 69% of all the corn that is in reserve for whatever reasons, that's huge. 60% of the rice, 51% of the wheat. Obviously, somebody knows what's coming. Absolutely. So, again, are you ready? And whatever your challenges are, I mean, think about it. I know so many people in these times, we're on serious budgets. We got to watch every penny. As we know, the plague upon the land has destroyed so many businesses, small and medium especially. Mom and pops, restaurants, little stores, things like that. Even other types of service-oriented businesses destroyed. Yet, the big corporations and the billionaires are doing better than ever. When you look at one country stockpiling so much food, that's a big pointer. There are clouds on the horizon that indicate conflict is coming. And besides that, just everything else. I mean, all the floods, all the drought, all the fires, everything. It's all adding up to one massive, massive chaotic symphony of destruction. And for those that are unprepared, it would not necessarily take long before hunger could set in. We have to be prepared. Here is one country, again, just about 70% of the world's corn reserves, 60% of the rice, and about half the world's wheat. And again, those things you can store. Think in terms of storage. We were talking again yesterday. Hey, instead of going out and supersizing yourself in #1 at McDonald's, you could actually probably get 30 meals worth of rice or lentils. Maybe not quite that much, but I don't even know what a #1 goes for right now. Again, because we don't go there, and you're getting more than you bargain for when you're eating those foods. Avoid the processed foods. Eat whole foods as much as possible. And again, organic as much as possible. And we know there's not much left that's truly organic in this world, but we have to make the attempt.
Yeah, we need to do our due diligence. And when I see this and think about the control in the world, I think, okay, they have as much money as they could ever possibly want, digital or otherwise. What other forms of control are they going to want and going to have? And this is a really good example.
And so we have a massive hack of Ukrainian government sites believed to be part of quote-unquote Russian sabotage operations. Things are getting to look pretty apparent that, this conflict, which again, looked to a certain 33rd degree Mason back in 1871 that knew of the plans to create this third global conflagration. And how many different people, from Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus and all of the smaller ones out there too, have seen this come to pass. And again, the guides have shared that typically this is how the Kali Yuga ends. And it ends when the people that are actually in the trains, the fighter jets, etc., the soldiers of the world, and the policing forces of the world, when they actually lay down their weapons because their consciousness has gotten to the point that they recognize that this is not what I signed up for. This is not what it's supposed to be. We have been, well, the wool's been pulled over our eyes, so to speak. The scales have been put in front of our eyes. We're not seeing clearly, or we haven't seen clearly, but now we will.
Right. We've had this, well, some have had an element of trust in thinking that there's going to be an entity that's going to take care of us in some way, shape, or form. But the reality is we need to do for ourselves.
Should we be surprised that the verbiage coming out of NATO is not the verbiage that the peaceful people of the world would want to see? How important is it to you individually that the Ukraine and Georgia become part of NATO?
Mm-hmm.
Because NATO is reasserting that now, and that's something that Russia has said is just, it's the straw that's going to break the camel's back. It's unacceptable to the point of, well, military seems to be the only option when you get to this range. And yet this is what we have. And so, you have NATO and you have the U.S. Aiding Ukraine. And of course, every country should be free. But as we know, how free do you feel right now in your own country? Whatever country that is.
Right.
How free do you feel right now?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not as free as we felt maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has changed so dramatically. And of course, we had this cyber attack that happened on the Ukraine. And of course, cyber attacks would be what would happen in general, probably en masse, right before conflict got underway. And yet the verbiage is such that it's not trying to, de-escalate. The verbiage, it just feels like it's intentional escalation, really. And we see NATO insiders fear an attack on multiple fronts. Hopes are waning within NATO that Russian President Vladimir Putin can be stopped from invading Ukraine. At the military alliance's headquarters in Brussels, officials are increasingly alarmed by even worse case scenarios. And where would these attacks, manifest as well? Would it be, some have said, hey, Russia is going to resurrect the Soviet Union. So if you're in places like Latvia and Lithuania, the Baltic nations, if you're in perhaps even Poland, you have to be aware of this. And Poland, the officials there have been very adamant that we're heading down that road. What would this look like? Well, they could always put together different war scenarios, and they do this on a regular basis. Over here we see Gotland, and this is an island that's owned by Sweden or controlled by Sweden. We see a lot of military hardware coming in, being airlifted into this area. Now this is a key strategic area, as you can see where it is right here. And we're talking about the Baltic nations, and you see Poland down below, Germany here. And of course we have Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and then Russia lies right over here. This is key for who is going to control the Baltic Sea. And again, we could look to the future by looking to the past and seeing what happened back in World War II and perhaps even in World War I in some ways, as far as how things escalated. Of course, the technology is just mind-blowing now compared to then, and how quickly things can happen. I mean, seriously, in an all-out confrontation, how long would the 11 American aircraft carriers last? Those things are gigantic targets that don't move very fast. And we see an explosion at a Swedish power station. Suspected sabotage. Who's trying to harm Sweden's electricity supply? Infrastructure. We saw that bridge over the Mississippi River that just seemed to all of a sudden develop a break in it. And we had all those barges and shipping that was stopped. You know, you will see things like this. You'll see, you know, obviously power supply, transportation routes, bridges, trains, all these things would be targets for the sleepy cellular units that we have talked about. And that would wake up. So again, now is the time for everybody to ask themselves, you know, what can I do to better prepare? Do I need to get more water filtration? Do I need more food? How long could we last if we couldn't leave the house?
Yeah.
What if there was rationing going on? What if it was like a, you know, a situation where we lost all of our computers, because we very well might, and we might not know what's going on at all besides what's going on in our immediate vicinity. What if we had to just stay in our houses for a week? What if it was a month? What if it was longer?
I know. You really need to take a look at things and see, what do you need to stock up on? What is that important to you for your day-to-day living? And make sure that you're prepared with that.
As we see, you know, things are building up, things are escalating on both sides as we see increased Russian activities in the Baltic Sea, you know, which again, this would be a key area. And, you know, now actually there's more waterways opened up in the Arctic, you know, because of melt in some areas, and of course it's freezing in other areas. It's just fascinating to see this and recognize how life can just change so quickly. You know, one day you wake up and all of a sudden the world is forever changed. North Korea hacked record 400 million in cryptocurrency in 2021, and they have just launched 3 hypersonic missiles in 2 weeks. Any link? It's interesting too, you know, again, there are those people that are such huge proponents of cryptocurrency, and yet if we did have an EMP, what are you going to do? If there's an EMP, or even if there's a CME, what are you going to do? Now, do you have food to trade? Do you have other things that people are going to want when it comes to, you know, nothing is functioning, bartering goods? What could you barter? You know, think about that again, because you're not going to be able to access your cryptocurrency.
Right.
And we see the CIA overseeing secret training program for Ukrainian special forces in the U.S. and the southern United States that they didn't really specify what states. But the forces trained by the CIA have been being trained in the southern U.S. And they've been training them for 8 years now, according to this source, preparing for what looks like it might be relatively imminent. And we see 549 cities under state of emergency due to severe floods in Brazil. You know, this is just ongoing. Everywhere we look, it's either too much water or not enough. And we had a high-level eruption, and this is in Tonga. Tsunami warning was issued. This was 55,000 feet above sea level, and again, now you're getting very, very close to the equator. So this type of thing, when we get more of these going and of a higher level of explosiveness, these can definitely start to cool the atmosphere down. And again, this is another thing that we talk to so many people, and they're like, well, you know, they're coming to realize, well, I love where I am. Maybe I'm in Canada, maybe I'm in New Hampshire, you know, or Minnesota or something, but then I'm really thinking about how much food am I going to be able to grow? And how about, you know, okay, you have a greenhouse that'll extend your season. You're going to probably have to have a fire going in the greenhouse. You're going to need some sort of heater, you know, maybe a propane heater, some other type of heater out there to keep things growing.
Absolutely. These are things you just need to go over and check and double check. And when it comes to trading, some people get really creative. Like I know people who make colloidal silver, and that's going to be very, very important because that has its own effects on the immune system. Although I'm not a doctor, I've used it myself, and it's helped me many, many times.
Absolutely. And the tsunami was only 1 foot, so
Nothing
to worry about there. So the White House just put out a baffling polling memo just acknowledging how, by far, the polling numbers as far as approval of the current administration is atrocious and extremely low, but it could be worse. And so it's kind of like, okay, so they're acknowledging that, you know, most people think that it's a crappy job being done. And they're acknowledging it. Yes, it is a crappy.
Well, we're going to prove to them we're honest. We admit that we're doing a crappy job.
And, you know, here you go. This is a sign of the times. FedEx proposing anti-missile lasers for some planes. The technology was actually tested in some cargo jets back in 2008. Think about it, even things like this. Now, there's actually been a lot of robberies by people dressing up as Amazon delivery people.
Wow.
And yeah, you know, and breaking and entering, you know, things are getting a little bit on the crazy side out there. And this is Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio, and just giving us some numbers. December 2020 to December 2021, gas up 49.6%. Used cars up 37.3%. Hotels up 27.6%, furniture and bedding up 13.8%, meat, poultry, and fish up 12.6%, eggs 11%, goes on and on. Hourly earnings down 2.4%, but the billionaires are doing it better than ever. Yes, you know, I mean, really, it states it all. By the way, surgeons have successfully implanted a pig heart in a human.
Wow, that is pretty incredible. It's not something I would choose to do.
No, and does that mean that they can't eat bacon anymore?
It's possible. I'm serious. That's possible because we just don't know what's going to happen. We
For
just
any
don't know.
that do eat bacon, and then if you are eating bacon, or any sort of cured meats, if you are a meat eater, make sure you're not taking the nitrates, because nitrates cause cancer big time.
Yeah.
They're horrible for you. So you do not want to take in things that have nitrates. Look at the label. And, you know, again, sometimes I'm kind of like shocked because these are things that, you know, I dropped off eating, you know, so long ago. And, you know, you can get uncured bacon if you are a meat eater. And, you know, that won't have the added nitrates to it. You know, one of the worst things you could possibly eat is any sort of deli meat. Absolutely. All the preservatives in there. It's just, you know, anything that doesn't decay after like a year or two.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue. You know, I've heard many stories of people who've gotten these implants from other people, other donors, and they actually take on their memories and their characteristics. Yeah. So that's got me curious here.
Well, that's the fractal nature of things, which we're going to touch on too. And so again, the top outbound states, people are leaving these states in droves. Illinois, 69%. New York is right behind it, 65%. California 64%. Now this is relative to, people coming in or people going out. So people are leaving these states big time. Again, Illinois, New York, California, New Jersey, and Maryland. We talked to somebody that left New Jersey today. And, where are they going? They're going to Idaho. They're going to Arizona. They're going to South Carolina, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And, again, I could see it. The Carolinas and Tennessee are nice. And same thing with Georgia. And geez, I've driven through Alabama and Mississippi. They're gorgeous states.
Right.
They're beautiful states. And, relative to the rest of the country, you could grow a lot of food in those states. So again, it's going to be about growing your own food. And it's going to be about, too, where am I more free? Where do I feel more free?
Yeah.
And look to the legislation that's been put in your state into effect. Look closely. Get that magnifying glass out. Read every little clause and recognize, what is going in to law as people are leaving the states that are less free in droves. The morphogenic field is real. Scientists show how to use it to understand nature. And again, this is what we were alluding to, the fractal nature of the universe. As above, so below. The pattern of things, it becomes pretty obvious. Now, when we're in it, it feels as real as can be. And it's not that our existence is not real. It is a temporary existence. It's not our home per se, our true home per se. But, the body is just a vehicle for the soul. And we shed the body when it's no longer useful. But we go on. And when we look at the nature of the universe out there, it becomes apparent that it really is created by consciousness for consciousness as a way to explore an alternative reality to the reality that is our natural state.
And everything is in a pattern, patterns big and small. Everything, one of the patterns that I use to repattern people when I do work on them is that the Fibonacci, it's to perfection, and that's what we're born with.
And that's what you're looking at right there. That is the Fibonacci sequence. And again, this is the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. And, Hermeticism, Kabbalah, the Western mystery tradition, and what has been talked openly in the East, it's all about the mind. It's all about consciousness. And so we're having that temporary a roller coaster ride. This is most definitely, we were joking with some of our friends last night about roller coaster rides, and this is what we're on. And right now it feels like we might have thought we went on the biggest hill with the steepest drop when the Plague Upon the Land started, but right now we're kind of finding that, we might be on an even higher hill right now, about to go down a steeper incline.
Right.
So, buckle up, hang in tight, recognize it's a temporary ride. We will get off this ride. And, we're going to step foot when we get off this crazy roller coaster ride into a much better reality, because we'll no longer be in the Kali Yuga. We are so close to getting out of the Kali Yuga. It's right there for the taking. But you know what? It's going to be a few hair-raising turns and corners and bends and drops. So you got to hang on. But it's fascinating to look at, because again, everything is relative to each other, and the symmetry that we see, from the galaxy level, how galaxies spiral just like DNA spirals. It's all just showing this pattern. Our consciousness has an amazing effect on our reality. Again, I would recommend putting intentions into your food. Give thanks for your food. Thank whatever authorities you want to thank. If you're just going to, just say the G word, if you're going to thank Yeshua, if you're going to thank the archangels, if you're going to just, thank your ancestors, you're going to thank Mother Earth, thank Gaia, thank whatever. Just put out that intention, that gratefulness for the food, charge it, see it as glowing with this healthy, vibrant life force, and ask that it be perfect for your body, mind, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly nutritious, and then ask that that which you're consuming, because it has had and has been the house for consciousness as well. Whether you're eating plants have consciousness. Whether you're eating animals or fish or birds, they all have consciousness too. Everything has consciousness. So thank them as the Native Americans would thank them for their sacrifice, and set the intention that they move on into higher realms as well, and better existences as well.
Yes, I think the vibration of gratitude, the more you can hold that signature feeling of gratitude while you're charging your food, that's the energy that's going to go into it. And our bodies are full of water, and it also takes on these patterns of whatever we're thinking, feeling, and there's been many scientific studies on that. So our thoughts are very, very important.
And recognizing that our battle is not necessarily against flesh and blood, as it is written. It's against beings that exist on different densities, some of which can see you. Now, in these times, you may start to be able to see them too. But often, many people don't have the third eye awakened to be able to see that which is not in the visible spectrum. Doesn't mean that they're not there, and that they are not affecting and infecting you. Both. So here's a link for smudging for beginners and saging. So we would strongly recommend in these times saging. When we work on people, if we work on 4 to 6 people on a given day, typically energetically, we're probably saging at least a dozen times. Because energies can travel from one person to another. So even though you maybe didn't do something, and that big thing that we're talking about, which is part of the dates for men, you might not have done something like that, if you know what we mean. But your coworker did, or your sister did, or your spouse did, and you might notice yourself not feeling particularly good. Well, could be that there is something else that is in the room with you. This will get rid of it.
Yes, this will push it out, and there's been many studies on this too, and it's really curious that this smudging, this sage, we use sage, it actually helps to cleanse like surfaces as well, and bacterias off of things. So it doesn't just work in the etheric realms, it works in a tangible way too.
Yeah, and you could get, like I bought an assortment of, I think, a dozen different sages, and I think it maybe cost like $12. It was relatively cheap, super cheap. And it'll last a long, long time. But it is a given. It's a necessity. See, the shamanistic cultures of this globe that recognize that, hey, just because I can't necessarily see it, just like viruses and bacteria, doesn't mean that it's not there. Especially when you can feel it or sense it, you could sense something is off, then go ahead and sage. And all you really have to do is just simply burn the sage and set an intention. And set the intention that only love and light may enter here. Only benevolent, beautiful beings of love and light may enter this room, this house, this property. And all others must leave. And so, what I will do often, if I feel the urge to get a little bit extra power in there, I'll start facing the east, and I'll draw a 5-pointed star starting at the lower left corner, going up to the top center, going down to the lower right corner, going over to basically left shoulder height, and then over to right shoulder height, and then going back to the original spot. And I'll just simply say Raphael and call on the Archangel Raphael to basically guard me, guard the property, and guard the house, and drive out anything that is negative. And then I'll go 90 degrees, turn 90 degrees to the right, and do the same thing and call on the Archangel Michael. And then I'll do the same thing, turn 90 degrees, and I'll be facing west, and I'll call on Archangel Gabriel. And then I'll finish by going to the north and calling in Archangel Uriel, and then come back to the center. And then I'll visualize that these flaming stars are all around me, and they're encapsulating myself, the house, the property, in a protective cocoon of just protective life force energy where nothing negative can enter.
When you draw these stars, it's just as if, you know, when you were a kid and you drew stars on paper, you just translate that from how you do it to paper into the ether.
Yes. And so I typically do it with the sage in my hand that I'm drawing. And so it does, if the sage is burning nice, you almost can see that star right there. And then just visualize the stars just going and just pushing things out of your area. And it works. It gets rid of them. They have to leave.
They have to leave. They can't maintain their I don't want to call it a body, but they can't maintain themselves in that changed environment because it has changed. You changed it.
And this is just 11. They're really, I wouldn't say mantras. I'd call them affirmations that you could use, such as I cleanse my home of any heaviness or negativity. Something like I live in harmony of mind, body, and spirit. I am grateful for health, abundance, happiness. I release all energies that do not serve me. And that makes me think too of another affirmation that I did a video on a while ago. Wouldn't be a bad idea to re-upload some of those, where it basically says, I release myself from any bonds, intentional or unintentional, that do not serve me. Because a lot of times we might not have realized that we've given our freedom of choice away. We might have done something, you know, made a statement that we didn't even realize that opened a door for certain entities to say, okay, well now, you know, they invited me in.
Happens.
Yep. I release any worry from my body and my home. I release conditioned patterns and trust the universe and my intuition to guide me. I'm filled with love, light, and peace. I release attachment and call in freedom. I choose joy. I call all of my power back to me now. That's a good one. I call in protection from negative energies. We are the next mantra that we've been asked to do by the guides, which we did do a video on it, but we're going to do it basically us saying it multiple times, like 108 repetitions, is all about wishing for basically world peace, which is so needed at this time when the fuse, it feels like somebody's got a lit match to the fuse to set off the powder keg right now. So if we could throw our intentions out there, we can always still change timelines and make things less hard.
Right. And when it comes to saging, don't make it difficult. These are super easy ways. It's an easy vibration to hold these simple sentences, and it doesn't need to be difficult in any way. The intention in your heart is everything.
Absolutely. And we do invite you guys to explore the mantras. We have a mantra section, and there's probably 30 to 40 of them in there. We'll be doing more and more. The guides have shared that they're helping in so many different ways. And we've seen the feedback from people. That's the one thing that people say, it's changed my life in a positive way. You know, doing the mantras has been a total game changer. And of course, with societal conditioning, it could be more difficult for some people than others to try something of a different culture and say, you know, perhaps Sanskrit words that you don't know. But those that do, they've noticed absolute life-changing energies come in that have cleared them and given them the ability to focus better and lift negativity from them.
Right. And I think key here is just keep it simple and don't get in so much information that you're confused. That's not necessary. This is easier than it looks, but there's all kinds of ways to do it. There's all kinds of ways. That's really important to know too. There's many different ways that many entities have come and they've taught people how to do these things. You need to do whatever is speaking to you. So listen to your heart, listen to your solar plexus, listen to any other voices that are nagging at you, and whatever really resonates with you, use that.
Mm-hmm. So as we go, before we go, I just want to see if you guys want to do this with me. I'm going to just basically draw these stars, 5-pointed stars, point up. That's the way we want to go, with the point pointing up around us and around anybody that is listening that wants to invite the energy of the archangels into their lives. And if you don't feel a connection to the archangels, you could switch it in your mind to any other benevolent being, be that Yeshua or Kuan Yin or Lakshmi or Aset or Buddha, you name it. So basically, may you guys always be blessed with abundant peace, love, health, and happiness. May the dark energies be removed from your lives. May their influence be taken away. And may your spirit soar so that you can be your own person with your own free will. And may that be for all beings.
Yes.
As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.